Hi, and welcome to Soul Podcasting. I'm Demetria Zinga, and you're listening to episode number 13. I'm here to help you launch and grow your podcast so that you can make an impact on your community. And I'm super excited to be here again on this week to talk more about podcasting and specifically soul podcasting. So that is what I like to share on this show. And I've talked a little bit about what I feel soul podcasting actually means in an earlier episode. So go back and check some of my older episodes to kind of get the gist of what I mean by the term soul podcasting that I coined just for the purpose of what I'm trying to do as a podcast coach. I know that there are many podcasters, podcast hosts, producers, editors, and I kind of feel like my calling is just a little bit different in the area of assisting podcasters. So I'm really excited about what I do. And I'm happy to be here. So on this particular episode, we're going to talk about using SEO to leverage your podcast. And before I get into that topic, just want to kind of give a heads up as to why I've been sounding a little bit scratchy the last couple of episodes. I have been on the tail end of overcoming some allergies and a cold. So it's been that season. So I'm a little bit iffy as far as being able to hear myself talk right now because my right ear is not cooperating with me. But nonetheless, I continue to roll with my podcasting. So that's just an example of being a podcaster and what that can sometimes mean in your daily life and your weekly routines. So you just kind of keep trucking and you take your tea and your cough drops and your vitamins and you take care of your voice and you just get better. So on another show, I think I would love to talk more about what it means to take care of yourself as a podcaster, how to take care of your voice. So on this show, again, we're going to talk about SEO because I've been hearing a lot of questions about what it means to get a higher ranking in search engines and get those search engines really looking at your podcast and ranking your content higher and giving you better visibility and results. And so first off, we're going to just give you the definition of keywords because I'm going to be using that word a lot. So keywords, I looked it up on Moz.com, which is an SEO software suite that helps you to improve your search engine visibility. And so what keywords are in terms of SEO, they're the words and the phrases that searchers enter into search engines to discover content. We also call them search queries. So those are your keywords. So if you're looking for someone to help you in your business, let's say you're looking for a life coach, a business coach, and maybe a particular type of life coach or a particular type of business coach. So let's go with a book publishing coach. That's very specific. So if you were to type in that phrase, that query string, book publishing coach, whatever results you see in the search engines as a result of typing in that query is because they were able to land on the first page for search engines. They were able to utilize keywords, specifically the one that you typed in within their content, so that now Google sees their content as an authority on that topic, and that keyword or that key phrase is ranking super high within their content online. So whether it's their blog or their podcast or their landing page, it's really ranking highly for that keyword. So keywords are a thing that you want to pay attention to when you are creating content, any kind of content, including your podcast. So I want to encourage you not to neglect keyword research. So keyword research is really a science that changes with the algorithms of Google or whatever search engine you're using, but Google in particular. So it can be really quite complex if you want to go down that road. And I don't necessarily want to go down that road. I want to make it a simple process for us. So I'm going to give you a few tools, resources, and tips that can help you simplify the keyword research process. But you want to make sure that you're researching before you create your content for your podcast and before you start writing up your show notes or your blog posts or anything associated with your episodes. And I don't want you to overthink it, because if you have a really great idea that you want as a topic on your podcast, and it doesn't happen to fall within the most searched for terms in your keyword analysis, which we'll talk about in a second, I don't want you to not talk about those things on your podcast just because you're not finding those results that you're looking for in your keyword research. So don't, make this your end all approach, but definitely integrate keyword research into your podcasting efforts. So one of the first things I'm going to share with you is to just check your keyword strategy plan. If you have a plan, and I hope you do, across your entire brand, and then you're going to fit your podcast into that plan. So whatever you've been doing for your other content pieces for your business, you should do that and apply the same things to your podcast. So this is going to apply to your blog if you have a blog, any of your sales pages, if you have a YouTube channel, or social media networks such as LinkedIn, those things are going to count. So anything that you feel like is a prominent keyword that you're using for your podcast episode, make sure that that is prominent on your website as well. And we'll get to that in just a moment. So again, look at your entire brand and see how your podcast fits into that. The second thing is to use the tools that are going to help you research the best keywords for your podcast episodes. So you're going to use things like Google Keyword Planner, and that's a great start, but you don't want to stop there. It gives you a general idea of what people are looking for, but it is rounded up to the nearest 1,000, I believe, as far as how many people are searching for a keyword. So it's not quite accurate, but it's a start to help you see how many people in general are looking for a particular topic and if it's a viable topic. So use Google Keyword Planner. I'll leave a link in the show notes so that you can take a look at what I'm talking about today. In my book that I wrote back in 2016, it's called Mompreneurs in Heels, A Guide to Passionate, Purposeful Blogging. I dedicated a whole chapter to keyword research. So that's chapter 4 in the book. And I talk about the gist of keyword research and how to go about doing it. So there's a page where I show step-by-step how to go into Google Keyword Planner and to type in your keyword idea to test it to see if it's something that people are looking for. So if you were looking for book publishing coach, you would type that in, see what the results are, see how many people are looking for that keyword for the month. And what Keyword Planner does is it shows you whether or not there's a lot of searches for that keyword phrase, and then what the competition looks like. If it's a highly competitive keyword, that means there are loads of other websites that are using that keyword as well. So you may have a harder time ranking for that keyword. However, if it's low competition and yet there are a lot of people looking for that keyword, then you have a better chance at ranking for that specific keyword. So those are some things to keep in mind about the general idea of keyword research and how it works. You will also want to use more than keyword research. You're going to want to use something such as keywords everywhere. That's what I use on a regular basis. I also at one point had an account with Ubersuggest, which is a free keyword research tool, but in order to get the most out of it, you're going to end up paying at least $30 a month, about $29 a month. And I used it for about 6 months at the paid level. And I did appreciate everything that I got out of it. I am now using keywords everywhere, but the Ubersuggest by Neil Patel is an excellent way to find out what people are looking for and what the competition looks like, and if you are going to have a good chance of being able to rank for the keyword that you want to. So for every episode, I highly recommend that whatever your idea is, for example, if you're wanting to do a podcast episode about becoming a book publishing coach, then I want you to type in that key phrase, becoming a book publishing coach, or how to be a book publishing coach, or even just the phrase book publishing coach, for an example. Type that into your Ubersuggest or your keywords everywhere, or a couple of other tools I would recommend are SEMrush. But these are going to be a little bit pricier, so check your budget before you invest in any of these. But SEMrush.com, Moz.com, RFs.com, or a couple more. Okay, so there's lots of keyword analysis tools that you can be looking at to see which ones are the best fit for you. So once you have decided, okay, this is a great keyword, I have a good chance at ranking for this keyword, then that's the keyword that you want to choose for that podcast episode that you're going to emphasize in those things that Google can see. That means your show notes. It means your blog post title. I highly recommend you have a blog post associated with each of your episodes if possible, just so that you can integrate those keywords in. So place those keywords liberally in your blog post title, in the description of your blog post, in the content of your blog post. And there are a certain amount of times that you'll want to repeat your keyword throughout your content of your post. You'll want to research what's a good rate of how many times you should be inserting that keyword, integrating it into the body of your post. And if you use wonderful tools, if you're on WordPress and you're using plugins that can help you figure that out without you having to go and do all the research yourself, I highly recommend that. And so plugins I'm using to help me to determine how things will look for me on my end as I'm creating content and making sure that it is something that Google wants to see. So in order to rank me higher in the search engines. So I like to use Yoast SEO, which is very similar to the all-in-one SEO. So those are WordPress plugins, and there may be some specific plugins to use that would be helpful for other platforms if you're on Squarespace or Wix. I'm not really familiar with those, but do your research and see if there's something similar as far as search engine optimization plugins or helps that can help you to create content that lets you know that you have to add a little more, of the keyword in this section of your content, or it just gives you suggestions as to how to make your content better, whether it's in your title, your description, your meta tags. It tells you, it gives you, as far as the Yoast SEO plugin, it gives you a green light or a yellow light or a red light, depending on how optimize that blog post is before you hit publish. So that's what I love about those particular tools. So find out what you need. Just be sure to integrate your keyword liberally throughout your content, and do the same in your show notes, because those show notes that are on your hosting platform, your audio hosting, is also being viewed by Google, by the search engine. So you want to fit those keywords there as well, and especially in your title and in the description of your show notes. So if your podcast episode is about how to become a book publishing coach, and you happen to be one of the very few podcasters that's creating an episode about that, and you use that keyword liberally, again, in your title, in your description, Google is going to rank you for that particular key phrase. And if someone's typing it into Google because they're looking for information on how to become a book publishing coach, it's possible that your podcast episode may make it on the very first page results, and they'll find your podcast episode that way. So you'll never realize just how much you're leaving on the table by not integrating those keywords into your content. Lastly, even though keyword research is not an end-all solution, it is not the only thing you should be doing with your podcast episodes, and it shouldn't be something that holds you back from producing an episode that you don't think will rank highly in the search engines. I don't want you overthinking this at all. This is just something that we integrate. Remember, it's integrative approach. It's not something that stops you from creating content that will not rank highly, because even if it doesn't rank highly in the search engines, it may just be the hot topic that everybody's looking for. And once you announce it on your socials and tell your family and friends and your followers all about what you're doing, they love that content, and Google doesn't even have to know about it because your followers love it so much, and it doesn't matter that it didn't rank highly. So remember that keyword research is a long-term commitment, and it is about the maintenance of your podcast. It's about keeping it growing and bringing in listeners and viewers organically, right? So whether those keywords are in your podcast audio show notes, whether it's in your blog post or it's in your YouTube, remember there's a description box in your YouTube as well if you're using your podcast for your videos as well. In addition to your audios, if you're doing video podcasting, make sure your keywords are going there. So people can find you in different ways, and you'll want to make sure those keywords are in those various platforms in addition to your socials, because I found that LinkedIn has just been a really great way that people have found what I'm doing with my podcast. So don't forget your socials. But again, just to reiterate, this is just a way to help you with your marketing efforts. It's just one of many different ways. And I just want to continue to reiterate the fact that I'm not an SEO expert. At some point, I'd love to have an expert on to really share more of the juicy details about optimizing and about keyword strategy. But these are the things that I have learned over the years, and I have been podcasting for over 17 years. And so this is what I've been doing to land a lot of my listeners extremely organically on a low budget and sometimes absolutely no budget. And this is how I've been able to build my podcast and have so many downloads and so many listeners within a short amount of time. And we're talking over 20, 30,000 listeners in a short amount of time, just because I've over time been able to build out my keyword strategy. And then suddenly, as my listeners began to compound month after month, and I found my downloads starting to just spike and increase pretty quickly, it just became like a domino effect after a certain amount of time. That's when I realized that also my keyword strategy was really starting to kick in. So when I would go into Google and type in a certain keyword, I found that my podcast was ranking like number 1 for that keyword at that time. So, I have a lot of examples, but one of my examples is the podcast that I still run today, but was more prevalent back in 2012 when I first began it. And it was my homeschool podcast. And that podcast was sort of my testing ground for a lot of the keyword strategy that I talk about today. So I found that a lot of this stuff works. And if it worked in 2012, even though Google has changed its algorithms a bunch of times since then, there's some basics of keyword strategy that have remained the same and maintained its integrity. So even though there's more competition today and it's harder to rank for certain keywords today, you still have to look at the fact that there are always going to be those long tail keywords, which, once we get an expert on, they can talk more about the differences between the shorter and the long tail keywords. But these are longer keywords that you would have more of an opportunity to rank highly for because they're just a little bit more descriptive. And then once you can get sort of your keyword bank, which is a list of all the keywords that you plan to use in your podcast, is going to help you to integrate those keywords into future episodes without much work. You do all your work up front, you go ahead and do your research, and then you integrate them in. So I just hope that this has been helpful to you and just giving you a little bit of a boost of encouragement that keyword strategy is not scary. You can use it. You can integrate it. You shouldn't expect your keyword strategy to work overnight, but know that once you start using the keywords effectively, that if once you give it some time, give it 3, 6 months, 9 months, after about a year, you will find the results of your strategy is most likely and hopefully is working well for you. So you'll need to just always look back on your strategies, see what your results are, see what's working, see what's not working, do some tweaking. And because that's what business is all about anyway, nothing happens overnight, but you will find the best results if you stick with something for at the very least 3 months, and you definitely want to stick with it for 6 months to a year to see how things are going. Okay. So that's my advice for you. Hope you've been encouraged, and that's all for now. And I can't wait to come back on another episode and share more with you about podcasting with soul. Until then, happy podcasting.